They'll say, we thought it was Marjorie Taylor Greene riding down the middle of the turnpike, but she's no longer recognizable. We found some of her. I won't say.
People have noted for years that Donald Trump rarely smiles, let alone laughs, and in general seems like a pretty humorless guy, which is why I found it so jarring that the first time I ever saw Donald Trump genuinely amused was during a recent rally in Georgia. And the thing that amused him was this elaborate hypothetical about the graphic death of Marjorie Taylor Greene. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I've got several clips to play for you in this video. They're from a recent rally in Georgia. And I just want to say on the topic of Donald Trump's humor, people talk about how funny he is. And there have been times that Donald Trump has made me laugh, sometimes intentionally, but for the most part, I'm usually laughing at him. But there's no question that he knows how to joke, right? That he knows how to be sarcastic, that he knows how to make others laugh. But he himself very rarely laughs, incredibly rarely. I have never actually seen him burst into laughter the way that we've seen President Biden do, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris. It's an unusual trait of Trump's, which is why this particular clip was really jarring. This is the first time I've ever seen Donald Trump actually seem genuinely amused, and it's really strange that this is what did it.
You're not recognizable if something goes wrong. If something goes wrong and Marjorie Taylor Greene with that beautiful blonde hair is driving down the highway in a hydrogen car, and the problem with a hydrogen car, if something goes wrong, it's like the atom bomb went off. You're not recognizable. But they say, we think we have it under control. That's not good enough. They'll say, we thought it was Marjorie Taylor Greene riding down the middle of the turnpike, but she's no longer recognizable. We found some of her. I won't say. We love her. Stand up. Marjorie, stand up. You're not.
So this is the first time, again, I've seen Donald Trump, like, actually, this is the closest Donald Trump has ever, I think, been overcome with laughter. Like, his breath hitched. He was genuinely giddy. And the thing that amused him so much, again, was this elaborate hypothetical of Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of his staunchest, most devout supporters, driving a hydrogen car and getting into a car accident and not only dying, but dying so graphically that she would be beyond recognition. Very strange. Just listen, I have a dark sense of humor. I know a lot of people do. There are a lot of things that can make me laugh, but I also laugh a lot. Like I like laughing. It's fun. I have a sense of humor. I both give jokes out, and I also don't mind being the butt of jokes. Donald Trump has a very strange relationship with humor, and so when I saw this clip, I was like, very bizarre. And there were some other strange and weird moments in this rally, per usual, as is often the case with a MAGA rally. Here's some other examples.
You're going to say, please say it, sir. I say, I will. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah. No. Be nice. Be nice. Be nice. You know, they used to say that with Hillary, and I'd always go, relax, take it easy. We're going to win. We're going to win, Brandon. We're going to win. Just please relax. They would do it every time I'd mention her name. They'd scream, lock her up, lock her up. And then the fake news. That's a lot of fake news. Look at that.
So just a couple of things here. Again, he cannot complete a coherent thought, right? So the fake news, and there's a lot of fake news here. He just pivots, right? The fact of the matter is that there were chances to lock Secretary Hillary Clinton up during his rallies in 2016 and actually in 2020 as well. And Donald Trump very often egged them on. And even this is the closest I've ever seen Trump come to trying to sidestep the notion of incarcerating his enemies. But even then, contrast that with how Vice President Harris hears this, because we actually do hear lock him up chants at Kamala Harris rallies every now and then. It happens. Of course, Donald Trump is a convicted felon, unlike Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Barack Obama. But when this happens at at a Harris rally, the vice president actually says, no, stop. We're going to let the courts figure that out. She puts a stop to it. Donald Trump let it go on and on and on. And the closest he can offer to a rebuke is be nice. This man has a pathological terror of confronting his own base. You know, the MAGA movement is a cult. But like most cults, the cult leaders, even they have to be careful from time to time, lest they lose control of the monster they created. We've actually seen Trump run afoul of this in the past, which is, you may recall, when Trump was president, he presided over Operation Warp Speed, which, accelerated the creation of the COVID vaccine. In a sane world, Trump would and should try to take credit for that, right? But he can't, because he primed his MAGA cult to not take COVID seriously, to believe that it was a hoax, and subsequently any attempt at a vaccine must clearly be something sinister. Why are you trying to vaccinate me for something that is fake or isn't real, right? And so he actually fomented an attitude of distrust about vaccinations and pandemics, such that when he would occasionally try to take credit for the COVID vaccine, it was one of the few times that Donald Trump would actually be booed at his own rally. Trump was booed at his own rally for trying to take credit for the vaccine. And ever since then, he has walked away from vaccines, never talks about it. One of the few accomplishments of the Trump administration, or under the Trump administration, that he can't take credit for. And the reason I bring that up is because it's the same thing here. Trump might recognize that with an election this close, what he shouldn't do is unwisely feed the idea that he's going to incarcerate his enemies, even though he'll do that tomorrow, right? He says things all the time that indicates he wants to target his enemies. But he had a brief moment of wisdom there, thinking, man, this isn't good. We probably shouldn't have this close to the election. But he can't bring himself to actually do what Kamala Harris has the courage to do, and to tell her supporters to say, enough, cut that out. The courts will take care of it. Total contrast to Kamala Harris, his moral inferiority. Another clip on this subject.
They said, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. They scream, I'd say, easy, we won. We're going to have unity. I could have locked her up, but I didn't want to lock her up. She's the wife of the President of the United States previously, and she was Secretary of State. I said, that would be so terrible for our country. And then they try and do it to me.
So again, total revisionist history. There were multiple attempts by Trump publicly and privately to prosecute Hillary Clinton, to have her investigated and subsequently prosecuted. They just never came to fruition because the Justice Department had nothing by which to prosecute her. Donald Trump then tries to spin his failure. Oh, I never attempted it, right? He's almost like an attempted murderer, to use a very stark metaphor, who fails in the murder attempt and then tries to persuade people, oh, I never tried to kill that person to begin with. Well, it's not true. We have this is just pure revisionist history, and Trump is banking on the short attention span of the American people to not remember or hold him accountable. But there were multiple documented attempts publicly of Trump trying to get the Justice Department to go after Hillary Clinton, even after he became president. It failed because there was nothing by which to legally get her. Trump should not get any credit for trying and failing to go after his political opponents and then lying by pretending that he never did, when in fact, that is what he did. Pretty gross stuff. Some other clips as well.
This is the kind of outrageous rhetoric that has resulted in 2 assassination attempts in the last 3 months, probably. I could say that that's probably right.
So again, Trump, who is the biggest proliferator of incendiary rhetoric, is trying to blame Democratic rhetoric against him for the assassination attempts against him. Well, again, by that logic, Trump should be the first one to shut his mouth, because he's much more incendiary than President Biden, Vice President Harris, or any elected Democrat, perhaps all elected Democrats combined. And some will say, well, there have been no attempts on Vice President Harris or President Biden. You don't know that. As a matter of fact, multiple people over the 4 years that they've been in office have been arrested for making credible threats against President Biden and Vice President Harris, and actually former President Barack Obama. And Secret Service isn't obligated to disclose. There could be all kinds of assassination attempts against the president and vice president that we don't know about. So if the standard is incendiary rhetoric can lead to violence, therefore you shouldn't engage in incendiary rhetoric, then that standard should also apply to Trump. And given that Trump is the most egregious violator of that standard, he should be the one relentlessly called out for it. Another clip.
The United States, she is unfit for office. Everyone knows it. No one respects her. No one trusts her. No one takes her seriously. Everyone knows she is a low IQ individual. From humiliating the United States.
So again, it's interesting that Donald Trump says that Vice President Harris is a low IQ individual when the polls show, and we covered this in a previous video earlier today, the polls show that more people think the vice president is smart and mentally and physically fit to be president compared to Trump. She actually consistently polls better than him in this respect. So again, it just seems like absolute projection and invites that contrast that he will always lose. Last thing I want to say is, again, he insults the vice president's IQ, but then he does stuff like this.
Great people, warriors, really. Elise Stefanik. Elise, thank you, honey.
That's Elise Stefanik. Again, a devout Trump supporter, a New York congresswoman. He can't even pronounce her name, right? But he wants to go after Vice President Harris and call her low IQ. I don't know. If I were advising Donald, I would say don't throw stones in your glass house. But anyway, very strange stuff from Donald Trump, including, again, the fact that the first time we've seen him burst into laughter was over an elaborate hypothetical that he himself created about the graphic death of one of his most devout supporters, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Weird guy, perhaps not mentally fit to be president. But we'll see in a few days. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.